Hey guys,
hello there.
Welcome to my concept series, where I share some pretty awesome ideas I get for video games and concepts that I think are much needed in future features, mechanics, and their updates. In today's video, we are covering a bit of a nostalgic love of mine, and that is Pokemon. More specifically, focusing around the latest installments since they've moved to the Nintendo Switch, and seeing where we can go from here and what they could add to future generations that would far improve their games. So let's begin. Now, if I didn't mention the great big elephant in the room as a future feature and fix for Pokemon games,
B-E-A.
I think I would actually be a crazy person. Sadly, as of now, the newer generations of Pokemon games are quite notorious for their downscale graphics and dull tone scenery, and some people try to defend it by arguing to the limitations of the Nintendo Switch console.
Now that's some bullshit.
Which I just remind them that we had Zelda Breath of the Wild that accomplished this very thing in 2017. And many games have since then also. If Pokemon wasn't the highest grossing media franchise of all time, this wouldn't be so much of an issue of laziness and rushing to meet their overly ambitious yearly quotas as it is of scope and funding issues, which clearly they don't have. The Pokemon company earned well over $11 billion in 2022 alone, and we can't get a great performing game with good graphics.
Hold up. Wait a minute!
Surely them adding a few extra dollars to their flagship games, to which they profit in the billions from already, is not too much of an ask. They could even charge more for the games on release, further increasing their profits, and for good games, people would absolutely pay it. Or with that amount of money, they could ultimately invest in a better console unit, fixing their so-called performance limitations and making them further profit.
Oh shit.
Fatality.
What the dog doing?
Personally, I feel softening up the textures of the world, reducing their harshness and adding a more pastel-like tone of color throughout the region, like soft pastel greens in grassy areas, aqua ocean blues, and lovely white peaks and wave breaks. Even the beautiful whites of the whitewash at the beach would work wonders, and only to the game's advantage. Fixing up those dull copy and pasted textures on cliffs and mountains that are so blatantly obvious right now. Think Genshin Impact, a 2020 game with its immaculate sunsets, beautiful cliffs and flora and fauna. Even Dragon Quest XI, a 2017 Switch game style, would be heavily enjoyable here. Everything about these particular games just looks so much more inviting, and it's what the current Pokemon really needs. Especially if they're going to continuously show those larger landscaped views of areas that are meant to take your breath away, but...
Wait a minute!
just come off as tremendously underwhelming. In the latest DLC, the Indigo Disc, when they first panned over the large expanse that was the terrarium, instead of a sense of wonder and beauty at this mega multi-biome structure, I had more of a sense of concern and, frankly, inner cringe. If a huge and demanding game such as Hogwarts Legacy can be optimized for Nintendo Switch and work just fine on the console, Pokemon really shouldn't have any problems here. One good thing I will say though is that the trainers and the Pokemon models look absolutely fantastic. It's just a shame about the environment around them. Another concept idea I had is bringing back the older style of Pokédex and its functionality, though perhaps modernizing it slightly, similar to say that of an iPhone screen, but without plunging too much into copyright and ripping it off entirely. So pretty much making use of the Rotom phone that they already have, but having it accessible in-game as a feature. This will allow players to access many different apps at the click of a button, as it shows your trainer picking up your phone and zooms into the screen with all your apps organized however you wish. Bringing back phone call options where you can call older trainers to battle them again, or even quest related calling and messages, and other additional add-ons such as the steps counter, the weather app, and Pokemon news apps, and the option to change your Rotom phone's theme. Adding different wallpapers to personalize your experience would be really cool. Even the map itself should be hooked up in an app style format on the Rotom phone. Another great feature for this would be to allow the camera app to zoom in to your screen and scan Pokemon in the overworld. Perhaps they could separate this into a separate app and call it the Pokédex app, similar to what they do in the anime, but obviously this isn't marked as caught until you catch it officially. They could even elaborate further on certain Pokemon not being recognized when you zoom in and scan them.
What's that?
There is no data. There are still Pokemon yet to be identified.
To which then you'll further have to be a detective and catch them to gain access to their full information and skills. This would also make seeing new overworld monsters more exciting as you explore new games and new regions. Alerts and notifications will pop up on your screen, allowing you to check in-game and really feel like you're in control of it by accessing these particular features yourself at your own pace. A problem I found, especially in Scarlet and Violet primarily, was the vast number of shops and houses shown in large city areas that are just cut and pasted into each city and lack any real excitement, only giving you interior access to two of the shops, which is the sandwich shop and the hair salon. The other shops, upon trying to enter them, just pop up with a menu, but you cannot physically enter them and say go order a coffee and sit down and drink it alone, or with say your friends whom have connected to your world to just enjoy the Pokemon's immersive ambience. There was also a lack of characters moving about in the overworld of cities of what are supposed to be huge and bustling. As I explored, I found that there were whole zones that were just simply empty, and as a gamer it really snaps you out of any engagement that a game attempts to offer when you see things such as this. It almost gives off a sense of being an unfinished area that you really shouldn't be in. Developers don't need to make every house or shop sell something to the player. Not even the older games did this, and that's completely okay. All they need is a random character in the house talking about him missing his son that's a trainer. I suggest making every house or area accessible, or simply don't show it at all. I believe that HMs should make a return, or at least in a less impactful way than it was previously, where you had to remove a move to teach it to your Pokemon. I know what you're thinking, HMs were pretty awful back in the day, but hear me out here. I think I've found a workaround that will make them quite useful and fun, but also give us a game that poses a bit of a challenge and is rewarding at the same time, as we can't be riding every new legendary Pokemon in every new game to come like a motorbike. That would just be bizarre. I picture this new version of HMs as a fifth move.
Oh, good!
Added into a HM section that's placed to the left of regular moves in battle, perhaps in a big circular button with whatever symbol HM it is. For example, Surf being the wave and so on. In game, this active HM symbol could also be placed to the bottom left or right of your screen, with the ability to toggle through the current available symbols that you have, so that you could utilize them in the overworld and where necessary in game. These can also be interchanged with other HMs for each Pokemon depending on the training that that particular Pokemon can learn and has undergone, and what Pokemon are available in your party with HM moves set currently. So yes, I'm proposing we add a fifth move slot, but purely limited to HM moves only. Cut, Fly, Surf, Strength, Flash, Rock Smash, Rock Climb, Whirlpool, Waterfall, and finally Dive. I propose to go about this by adding teachers or masters in their respective HM fields around the region, and adding cool minigame modes to where you must complete them in order to learn those particular HM skills per Pokemon that you use it on. By further completing more difficult ranks of the minigames, you can further upgrade the HM moves, damage output in combat, and also gain mastery stars or ranks of completion, like badges that players can work towards. Perhaps even making later game areas and zones require certain ranks to proceed, like say a rank 5 mastery in the Surf HM is required so that you can surf more dangerous waters and territories. This would be quite fun in my opinion and create more of a challenge, giving players something worth achieving instead of just being handed everything from the get-go. This is just one of the many cool HM minigame ideas that they could implement, as there are 10 of them. With the mention of all those HMs returning, you guessed it, that means we also get one of my absolute favorite features from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald versions, and that is the Dive feature. Dive will bring an opportunity to swim below the crystal clear surface and travel to more expansive regions underwater. It would also open up the game to other potential new Pokemon that can only be found in these particular deeper areas of water, perhaps hiding in coral reefs or under the sand on the seafloor. This would also make for great scenery to share with your camera app on your Rotom phone. I imagined it like once you hit the Dive HM action button, the cutscene suits you up from your bag and into your diving gear, and you plunge into the water. When the splash dissipates from the screen, you're with your underwater Pokemon and are opened up to a vast underwater world where you are able to ride or swim behind the Pokemon that is pulling you and the select Dive HM Pokemon. Swimming through lush and vibrant reefs of coral and schools of fish-like Pokemon, clumps of different types of sea moss and large areas of seaweed, discover pearls and items that can only be found on the seafloor, or even allow for shipwreckages lost to the surface to be explored. This would all be insanely fun. When you resurface, you are back on your nominated surf Pokemon after the splash cutscene ends. This feature also means removing the PC access from anywhere, like in Scarlet and Violet, or at least restricting removal of HM Pokemon when in use, to avoid glitching and being stranded in the ocean or certain areas around the map. If you're using crossplay and have other players in your world, this group feature will then need all players to press OK before being initiated into the dive cutscene, and proceeding underwater to explore with your friends. Or just make it unique and separate it for each trainer as they join you in the underwater zone. This was such a cool feature, allowing you the ability to plant seeds and water them with your Wailmer pail, and come back days or hours later to see if they'd grown into a large, pickable berry tree. This whole idea gave players in-game responsibilities, which further improved immersion and overall gaming experience, which for me personally is why they need to make a return. Scarlet and Violet just sees you picking them up off the ground, which sucks a lot of the fun out of it. This will also open up a potential florist in each city, allowing for an extra shop idea to fill the flurry of unenterable shops that they currently have. The florist will allow for sellings of unique pails, giving players more personalization options to their unique gameplay styles. Unique berry seeds to grow and or bringing back mulch to help trees grow more quickly would be a brilliant idea. Even allow a feature where you can dig out the dirt yourself or prepare the soil in whatever areas you choose to be able to plant those particular berry trees in. Certain berries may require different types of zones or areas, like say a seed that is only grown in the desert. I feel like giving players alternate options like these would further add to overall immersion and gameplay excitement. It wouldn't stick you in the must finish storyline quest box straight away and would allow you to branch out and enjoy the beautiful world for what it is. A great idea for future Pokemon games would be to implement a difficulty setting at the beginning of each game, giving players the option to choose whether they want easy, standard gameplay, or for those pining on becoming the very best, like no one ever was, a hard difficulty setting mode. Throughout the game, the hard mode will allow players to experience much stronger Pokemon in the overworld, and much more difficult trainers and gym battles throughout their experience. I suggest something like increasing their level cap to say 5 or so levels higher than your party average, and perhaps permit them the abilities of utilizing more items more frequently, like revives, berries, and potions. They could even utilize something similar to the Titan Pokemon feature that they did in Scarlet and Violet, where the Ace Pokemon has access to a larger chunk of health, and perhaps even a shield like in Raid Dance. Though for me personally, I prefer the older style of Pokemon battles, and would feel them justified if they choose not to add this extra step, as the battles would seem much more reliant on your skills that we all have access to, than on hacks set by the developers. This feature will be world exclusive to the trainers, so when other friends join in on your world, if they happen to participate or engage in a battle, they too will have to deal with the effects of your stronger, more dangerous environment. These particular Pokemon I imagine as colossal Pokemon that you are able to encounter in the overworld of your games as you progress through your journey. Usually these rare Pokemon are dormant and in slumber, and this can play into the lore of the region. Perhaps even going into something like compass positions, and that there's a Pokemon for each direction, a sort of guardian deity, so to speak. It would also be really fun to see one or two swimming deep underwater, or flying through the clouds around certain areas of the region, or even like a burrowing Steelix rumbling through the earth in a select area. Along your journey, if you should happen to get close to one, this will trigger a really cool cutscene to introduce you to the new and gargantuan looking Pokemon of the overworld. Like an event reminiscent of when we first were introduced to Groudon and Kyogre, it was really epic and added to the excitement of the gameplay. After the cutscene is triggered, the Pokemon will then be made aware of your presence as their gaze follows you carefully. These legendary Pokemon can only be encountered once each in the overworld before scurrying off to their respective legendary dungeons. Scanning these rare Pokemon with your Pokédex app will result in a null entry. Once you've caught their attention and triggered the cutscene and they've headed to their respective dungeons, you'll then be able to catch and battle them as a final boss of the dungeon once you complete it. I envisioned each dungeon to be themed on the Pokemon it is showcasing in regards to the environment and the potential Pokemon that can inhabit them. Perhaps even taking notes from regular online games to where there are sub-bosses, as well as lots of Pokemon mobs running around that aren't quite used to trainers walking through their domain. The legendary Pokemon itself, I imagined, is much stronger. Much like the Titan Pokemon, in where you have to chip away at their health, as they will have quite a lot of it. This will be an awesome feature to get trainers utilizing more online and social features of Pokemon games, making new friends along the way that they could add to their Rotom phone's contacts list, or if you wish to venture solo into the dungeon, just making sure that you've trained your Pokemon to their strongest forms and brought along many potions and revives. I believe this feature will add a fresh new take into the world of Pokemon games, and it will make it really exciting to be a trainer. You won't just solely be relying on using your Pokemon all the time, and I think that this will add a great game experience and mechanic for all players. There are currently 4 different class types that I've come up with so far, and they each come with exclusive unlockable items and attire and personal benefits for selecting and being each class that separate them from the other ones. Trainers can master them all during their journeys, as I feel making each character only able to pick one class may be a little limiting. The first class I had was the Archaeologist. Across the region, there are many dig sites, tombs, and ruins that you can utilize your archaeology skills at, and further progress in the game by completing side quests that aren't along the main storyline, but are offered by specific NPCs throughout the region. These particular dig areas are locked for players that don't have proficiency in the class, or in some areas a high enough rank to access them. To level up as an archaeologist, you gain a shovel upon signing up and can dig around marked locations on the map, and even earning EXP points on successful digs and class quests that you're given and have completed and returned. During your digs, you can find hidden treasures such as gems, nuggets, shards, scales, or even evolutionary stones. Another rare benefit of the archaeologist class is also having the chance to get a rare find during your digs in the form of a Pokemon fossil. to which you can use them in certain cities to convert them back to fossil type Pokemon, some exclusive to the region, or even older fossil Pokemon such as Kabuto or Aerodactyl, and so on if you're lucky enough to unearth them. The second class I had in mind is the Athlete. The Athlete is a more physical class where quests rely more solely on long distance travelling via steps travelled in the Steps counter app. That'll be installed on your Rotom phone. Perhaps certain class quests can be running or riding your bike to areas within certain time limits, or to swimming across certain beaches or to islands, or even diving to certain areas to collect specific items, or even delivering them to other cities like a mail. The benefits of this particular class, apart from their unique sporting attire, is an ability to increase all their movement speed features in game, including swimming, diving and flying with your Pokemon, to running, and flexing those muscles on your bicycle as you traverse the region's great many areas at a faster speed than others. Perhaps the Athlete class can also add cool features such as adding acrobatics like they had with the bike in older generations. The third class I came up with is the Pokemon Groomer. The Pokemon Groomer will give access to more cozy features in the game like they had in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee with partner interactions, but further expanding on this and adding cute features that will help you bond with your Pokemon during picnics or at your house, like giving them haircuts or even bathing them yourself with soap and bubbles, or applying ribbons and other items that they like. The Pokemon Groomer class is leveled up when you pamper your Pokemon through various grooming features in game and further rank up their happiness levels. Perhaps a particular class quests can be along the lines of training a Pokemon up one level of happiness, or to quests that require a Pokemon trained to its max happiness, or even multiple Pokemon in your party to reach this feat. The benefits of being a Pokemon Groomer, apart from the obvious exclusive clothing and attire, is that it allows you to encounter shiny Pokemon much more regularly than any other trainer or class type, and Pokemon are more likely to not attack you or run away in the overworld, making it more beneficial for catching those rarer or even shinier Pokemon, or when you want to study them up close if you wish to utilize the scanning feature of your Rotom phone. This can even help in dungeons as you can sway angry Pokemon from attacking you, whether you're alone or with a group of friends trying to complete it. And the last class I had was the Pokemon Chef. As a chef, you gain proficiency by working class quests that revolve around cooking for other trainers and Pokemon, or even your own Pokemon. As you progress through the easy stuff, this will further unlock unique and harder recipes that may require foraging for certain ingredients around the region that wouldn't normally be found or bought at a store. This could also even allow for unique in-game experiences by having the ability to set up a food stall anywhere in a city and cook for trainers that may come along in a wave-style format that get harder as you cook. This could even allow for cooking in specific restaurants around the region and have a similar NPC wave-like feature where they come in and try to order your food. The benefits of being a Pokemon Chef is that on top of being able to make lovely food and drinks, you gain access to making things such as proteins and zincs that help train and level your Pokemon's stats that other trainers would normally have to find in the world or buy at a certain store for a ridiculous price. Classes could further be elaborated on with classes such as a Pokemon Coordinator if they wish to bring back Pokemon contests, or even having a nurse class that will allow for the making of potions, revives, and even the ability to be able to heal your party Pokemon when away from a Pokemon Center without the use of potions, or even healing your friend's Pokemon if you're, say, stuck in a dungeon and you're out of potions. But I haven't fleshed those ideas out as much here, but it is really fun to think about. With rumors of a Nintendo Switch 2 being released in late 2024, boasting Nvidia hardware among many other performance fixes and features, consider me really hopeful for the future of Pokemon games, and let's hope that they don't cut corners. That's the end of today's concept video. I really hope you enjoyed it. As always, there are many more ideas in the works, so don't forget to subscribe and like the video for future content. If you liked my ideas, be sure to comment and let me know, or if you have any future ideas that I should share or games that I should cover in future videos, please also let me know. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace.